Well, have a look at this Gigantica football, 33 pounds, 12 ounces, falling foul to those choddy hooks once again. And the rig I'm using is pretty simple. I'm going to show you exactly how to tie it up right now. Now's the time to have a look at the rig that's been catching me these Gigantica carp. It's a really simple setup, just like the angler that showed me it, Tom Dove. So let's talk about how you set it up. What you're going to need is some N-Trap soft. I'm using the gravel brown in this situation to help match the lake bed as best as possible. The first thing you do is actually uncoat about 2 inches of the outer coating from the N-Trap soft. The whole idea of this rig is to actually have the coating running right through the eye of the hook, all the way down the shank, but basically leaving a supple hair. So make a loop in the uncoated part and then slide on the bottom bait. In this instance, it's the Cell. I've also been using the new Grange and both have been brilliant. Now, the magic part as well is our new IB Maze that I'm tipping it off with. That helps to sort of semi-balance the hook bait, and you'll see inside there I've got one of our new little yellow mini extender stops that are pulled in there nicely. The next job is to take a size 6 choddy hook out of the pack, make sure it's really sharp, test it in the palm of your hand, make sure it's piercing and hurting you as you pull it in, and also just gently dab it on your nail and make sure it's grabbing, okay? Don't do it too hard because any hook will grab your nail if you pull it hard enough. You want to be doing it ever so gently and making sure it grabs. That's the test of its true sharpness. Now you need to begin the knotless knot process. So take it, and what you'll actually see is I've whipped 12 times down the shank and then 3 times underneath it, just to kick the hair out there. And you want the hair exiting about halfway down the point, between the point and the barb. And what you'll also notice, I've actually crushed the barb down on this hook. There's a barbless only rule on Gigantica, so your options are to either crush the barb right down or use a barbless hook such as the Choddy B. Your next job is to basically wet the end trap, and what I'm going to do now is add a medium-sized sinker. So pull that down, and I've got it about 2.5 inches from the eye of the hook. Then take some dark matter putty out of the tin and then just wrap it round so you're getting like a nice big large mouse drop in size there. And that does 2 things. It not only pins the hook link down to the lake bed when it's out there, it also almost works as like a little tickler. It just sort of helps to pull that hook down into the bottom lip. And you could increase that putty. People like Adam Penning and Damien Clark have big old bits of putty there, and that sort of pulls that hook right down into the bottom lip of the fish. Working up, I've just tied that with the aid of a 5-turn grinner knot to the ring swivel on a hybrid leg clip. And let's talk about the lead system itself. I've been using the hybrid leg clips, and in my opinion they're the best leg clips on the market. That swivel is fused inside there, there's no way it can ever come out, and they're dumping the lead every single time brilliantly. And one of the key elements of achieving that is to have that tail rubber just on there. I've got the actual leg clip palomared onto the main line, and you'll notice I always just salivate it ever so slightly and just have it stuck on there, and then pushed into the tail rubber is a nice about 1-foot long length of the dark matter rig tube. That's available in all different colours, and it's so fast sinking, so limp, and perfect for tangle free fishing. Overall, this setup is absolutely brilliant for taking anywhere in the country. The first time I used it was when Tom Dove showed it to me at St John's. I was having a difficult time with riggy fish, and I changed to this with a boilie only approach, and it just started catching carp straight away. Tom was already having them, and it took me probably 24 hours to get onto the setup, and I never looked back since. And why does it work so well? Well, one of the main reasons I think is you've got that sort of semi-stiff material. We call it N-Trap soft, but it's always going to be slightly stiffer than braid. And with that outturned eye on a choddy hook, you've got that stiffer material exiting from that eye, lovely and straight. And what that leaves is a very open gape, okay? And an open gape means it's got every chance of catching in a fish's bottom lip or in the scissors. Most of the hook holds with this rig, as the fish picks the bait up and moves away, are in the scissors. That big open gape just goes and just does them straight in there. It's an awesome little setup, and that soft hair is always allowing the hook to fall away, and that semi-resistance of a stiffer material just keeps that hook in place. And the reason I'm using the sort of N-Trap soft is because I'm casting it a long way, but you could use some of the stiffer versions of our coated hook links that Dan will show you elsewhere in this DVD. The final point is the actual length of the hook link. You'll notice I'm using about 8 inches, okay? Now the reason for that is because I'm introducing the bait by the boat, and the area is quite tight, okay? So I'm gone for a slightly shorter hook link. If I was putting it out with a throwing stick and the bait baits are spread a lot more, then the likelihood is that the carp will be coming down, picking baits up, moving, and they're moving faster and further. Therefore, I want to give them enough rope to hang themselves. So in that instance, I might go from 10 to even 14 inches. Just to recap, it's a brilliant little setup, and just because it hasn't got shrink tube and rings and stuff on it doesn't make it any worse. Sometimes simple is brilliant. And the final thing you've always got to remember is the length of that hair. Okay, make sure it isn't too long and make sure it isn't too tight. You don't want it like that because that hook will be trapped by the bait. I always have it so it's just brushing the hook shank or the bend, if you like, in that situation, and that's perfect. Take it to any lake, anywhere in the country or in France, and it's going to be catching you carp from the off. Well, take a look at this one. 34 pounds, 12 ounces of common carp. Not the big enough what I was hooked into, but once again, it proves just how devastating that knotless knot on that end trap and choddy hook is. What an awesome creature. Made up with this one.